What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the channel. Today I'm really excited to be talking about Obi-Wan Kenobi. This deck I've had a ton of fun with, been testing it out, and I also want to talk about the Temple of Destruction because I do think that it's probably one of the best rare bases in this set if you are using a force-centric deck that requires you to use the force for either your leader ability or your units and your events and stuff like that. But again, this video is to talk about a deck list, and I kind of want to explain two types of decks that you can use for Obi-Wan because I think it's an option. I think Obi-Wan aggro has a place or potential in this upcoming set. Now, whether it's going to be top of the meta, that's neither here nor there. I'm not sure about that, but I do think that it, at least in the local scene, is going to be a deck that can be a ton of fun for people to play. And as I continue to edit this deck, obviously this is not my final rendition of this deck. I'm not including everything that I'm thinking about doing. But I do have two deck lists I'm going to go over, one in very little detail and the other in more detail. I'm not going to go over Obi-Wan and the base in the first deck list thing, just because you'll kind of see why when we get there. But if you guys are new here and enjoying the content, make sure you hit that sub button down below. Support is always appreciated. As you guys know, when the set does come out, we are going to be doing a live stream, and we're going to be opening up a case of collector boosters, and I'm going to be giving away a box to you guys of Legends of the Force. So we do that every single set. It's a ton of fun. Make sure I'm going to go ahead and get the dates for that as well up soon, so you guys are aware of what's going on. But again, thank you all for the support as always. And let's go ahead and talk about the first deck list. Again, it's not going to get a ton of detail just because it's not really a deck list that I think that I'm going to use. But I think that this is kind of what I saw, the Temple of Destruction, and I kind of went from here. So you're just going to see the deck list come up right now. Boom. This is Obi-Wan Temple of Destruction Rebels, right? As consistent as Rebels are at getting 3 damage into your base, into your opponent's base, this allows Obi-Wan to go wide and keep up the pressure. This is basically my Sabine list, just a little bit different, not too crazy. I mean, I have wing leaders now in the sideboard, but maybe that does come back. But this is just Obi-Wan Rebels. Try to hit the base consistently for 3 and feed experience tokens to your units as you continue to go wide and pump out more experience tokens. You have things like Battlefield Marine, Luke. Sabine Wren does not trigger Temple of Destruction, so keep that in mind. Green Squadron A-Wing and Phoenix Squadron A-Wing on turn 1 to be able to deal out 3 damage first turn very easily, right? You get the force, then you go ahead and you pump up the unit. Sabine's Masterpiece allows you to also be able to give out experience as well. So if you're using Obi-Wan and Sabine's Masterpiece to give out experience tokens throughout like the game, you can make some really big, strong, low-costing units. But now keep in mind that Obi-Wan cannot give experience tokens to units with experience tokens, right? So what I would normally do in this deck is let's just say I have a Battlefield Marine. I swing a Battlefield Marine. I go ahead and I put an experience token on the Battlefield Marine. I play out Sabine's Masterpiece. The following turn, I'll attack with Sabine's Masterpiece and give that experience token to the Battlefield Marine, use Obi-Wan's ability, make Sabine's Masterpiece a 4/4, and then swing with Battlefield Marine. And he's a 5/5 at that point, and I'm also getting the Force back. So I'm starting next turn with the Force, and you just kind of go from there, right? You have General's Blade with Obi-Wan and Huang to allow you to play things for cheaper. So if you are continuing to go wide, you can either play a Sundari Peacekeeper for 1, maybe you can go ahead and play Cassian for 1, and then you can play out Battlefield Marines for free with Huang and General's Blade, right? Again, that'll force you to have the Force, and then you can go ahead, play that unit for free, and then boom, put an experience token on it from Obi-Wan. Again, this deck is Rebels, but with Obi-Wan, making your Rebels consistently gain experience as the game goes on. But it's not what I want to have Obi-Wan be in this set. And again, this deck list I'm going to show you is in the very early stages. There's not really many events in the deck and stuff like that, but I do think that is a fun aggro deck, and I'll kind of explain my thought process as I continue to see more cards get revealed. This deck will probably change, but my early rendition of Obi-Wan in the set is to be aggro and try to go wide and hit hard, right? So let's go ahead and let's start by going over Obi-Wan himself, right? He is a command heroism leader. For an action, use the Force, give an experience token to a token without an experience token. So you cannot go ahead and just hand out experience tokens to the same unit over and over again and make this giant creature, right? which is cool. I do think that if they did allow that, this deck would be completely broken. So it does make sense, right? With my testing, I know that this would be completely busted. But when you go ahead, Epic Action only requires you to control 5 resources, and you can deploy him. He's a 3/6, which is unfortunate. He gets Aura 66 right in the dome, but that's neither here nor there. On attack, it allows you to go ahead and give out an experience token to a unit without an experience token. Again, continuing your ability to hand out experience token as quickly as possible. And as long as you're continuing to go wide, you're going to be able to hand out experience token in this deck a ton, right? I'm going to go over 2 bases here because with this deck, you can choose either one. I like to go with the Temple of Destruction. I think that this might be the best bear base. I could be wrong, but I'm having a ton of fun with Temple of Destruction. It allows you to get the force very easily. Not saying the other base does not that I'm going to go over, but I think that this one's just a lot more fun because you're attacking your opponent's base, keeping up consistent pressure and consistent damage, right? When a friendly unit deals 3 combat damage to an opponent's base, you get the force. The way that we built the deck, we have a lot of units in here that do hit for 3 early in the game, allowing you to get the force early game pretty easily. And then you kind of go from there. The other base that you can consider using in this deck is the Temple Vader. Because all you have to do is attack with a force unit to get the force. And if you want to build more of a tempo deck, like you're just trying to take out your opponent's units, give out your units some experience tokens to make them a little bit beefier, to make better trades for you, Temple Vader, and you want to go more force units, Temple Vader might be what you want to use, but I'm having a ton of fun with Temple of Destruction. Let's go ahead, do what we always do. Let's start off with the ground units, right? We have a D here. She's very solid. She's not going to get you the force when attacking the base on her own, but she's a 2/4, making her a pretty decent statted 2-drop. Again, when you go ahead and you use Obi-Wan's ability, when you do have the force, she becomes a 3/5. So that's a really good, that's a 3-drop, that's a preferred 3-drop stat line for a 2-drop. Yes, it does require you to use the force and give her the experience token, but still it's not that hard. And she also has an ability that when an opponent plays an event, you deal 1 damage to that player's base. And again, keeping up more pressure, keeping up damage and stuff like that, pretty good there. Next, we have the Battlefield Marine. This is why I like the Temple of Destruction better, because he's obviously not a force unit, and this is my ideal turn 1 play, if I'm not going in space, right? A 3/3 for 2, swing in the base, get the force right away, and go from there. I just think it's very consistent. Command heroism unit, just very strong, especially with the Temple of Destruction, to continue your ability to puke out these experience tokens. Infused Brawler, I think, is a ton of fun with Obi-Wan. Now, this, again, can be used with Temple Vader or Obi-Wan, this strategy, but still, it's a lot of fun. How easily you're getting the force with this deck, you can go ahead, you play him. He's a 4/4. He does get 2 experience tokens that way. But then when this unit completes an attack, you defeat an experience token. With that being said, when he is a 3/3 and he attacks and he goes back to a 2/2, if he attacks in the base with Temple of Destruction, he does end up getting that force on your base again. So you can just use Obi-Wan to reapply the experience token back to him. So you have an endless target with Obi-Wan and Infused Brawler, and I think it's pretty fun. Yes, it does work with the Temple Vader as well, but again, you don't have to swing into base with that. But again, this would become a 2/2, and he'd probably be dying if you are swinging into units. This is like consistent pressure into your opponent's base, and I just kind of like it. It's a lot of fun. Luke Skywalker, another force unit, so it does work with, again, Temple Vader, or it does work with the Temple of Destruction. Again, he attacks for 3, so you're going to be getting the force off this either base you decide to go with. And again, he does have that ability to go in as a pilot as well to make your ships stronger. He does give a 3 to buff to your ships, and then when the ship is destroyed with him on it, he does go straight to the ground, allowing you to keep up the pace because the units, you're not losing board presence. So that's why I love Luke in this deck. Cassian Andor, he's an aggression heroism unit that I include in almost all of my aggression heroism decks because the ability to come out ready with Smuggle allows you to keep up pressure in the late game, especially with the ability that Obi-Wan has, that if you do have the force and you bring out Cassian Andor, he's actually hitting for 4 pretty consistently, right? Next, we have Huang. I love Huang. I might move him to 3. I'm not entirely sure yet, but I just think that Huang is a ton of fun, especially, as you guys probably guessed, we are running the General's Blade in this deck. So he is a Jedi and allows you to puke out units faster. and cheaper in this deck. And obviously, like, this deck is going to have more Jedi in it. Not a crazy amount right away, but obviously as we continue to test out the deck, we make changes, we'll probably see more Jedis. And as more Jedi come in and get revealed, right? But Hugh Wing is a ton of fun. He does give a buff to one of your units. So if you have an AD on the board and you do want to get the Force early on, you can play this. She'll become a 4/6, and she's going to be able to hit the base, get the Force. You can go ahead and use Obi-Wan and make Hugh Wing a 3/5, making him that ideal stat line for your 3-drops. Again, harder to get rid of as well to keep a D at that 4/6. And then you can put the General's Blade on him, make things cheaper, and him still hard to take out. It's like, I just really like what Hugh Wing brings to the table. And yeah, so here he is. We have Maz Kanata. This is Fleet Lieutenant, but for Force units, and it's still really good as well because, again, you're going to use this to hit the base probably, or you can use Temple Vader and you can just take something out. And that's why I think that, like, I'm leaning back and forth between Temple Vader and this. If this ends up being a full Force deck for the most part, I think I am going to go Temple Vader. But the way that it stands right now with Alpha Marine, Green Squadron A-Wing, Phoenix Squadron A-Wing, I think that Temple of Destruction is more consistent with you getting the Force early game, which is what I want, right? But Maz Kanata, you can attack with a Force unit, and you can use it to take out an opponent's threat or anything like that. But still, Fleet Lieutenant, but with the extra HP, which is actually pretty cool. And then also you can use Obi-Wan's ability to make her a 4/5. So pretty decent there. We have Obi-Wan Kenobi. Love this card. When you play a Force unit, including this one, this unit gains Sentinel. This is a very good card to drop in against things like Sabine and stuff like that. There is a lot of space aggro currently going around, but you know, this is what we're working with as far as at least able to stop the ground, right? Just a very good unit. And then also you can use it with the General's Blade to make things cheaper to come out as well. So pretty good there. I have Eth Koth here. Again, with how easy it is to get the Force, I'm going to keep on saying this. This deck, you're getting the Force so consistently that this is probably, if it's defeated, you are probably getting the ramp off of it. And that's pretty good. Also, Obi-Wan makes it a 6/5. And it's just a huge threat. Being able to attack for 6 with your 4 resource unit is pretty solid. Eth Koth, very strong. I did drop K2SO. Is it going to bite me in the butt? I don't know. I'm trying to go more Force-centric in this deck. The next 3 cards, we're going to go through them pretty quickly. We know what they do. We have Chewie at a 3-drop. Probably going to drop that down to a 2-drop, though. But, again, this is for the pilot aspect of it all. You make your pilots attack for 6. You make them go ahead and go next turn attack for 7, because if you have the initiative and you get Chewie on your space unit, it is almost impossible to get rid of it immediately. So it's just consistent pressure, allowing you to keep up that aggro, right? Poe Dameron, we know what he does. On attack, discard up to 3 cards from your hand. You can do each of the effects. Just a very, very strong unit. When you play it, it's a 6/6. With Obi-Wan, it can potentially be a 7/7. That's just really scary, right? Wrecker, again, comes out, defeat a friendly resource, deal 5 damage to a unit. This is how I use what I use to potentially take out Sentinels in the late game when they're on the board. But still, he's just very strong. And now, yes, we are losing the ECL that make these 2 cards so potent, but we are running Timely Interventions, and I think that they're still very good cards from what they do. And you can go ahead and you can try to switch it out with Ayla. Again, I do think that this deck is going to go ahead and shift towards almost a full Force build. I don't know if I get rid of Wrecker, but maybe Poe does become Ayla, because she's a Force unit, and she does, when she has Coordinate, you know, take out units and live. But with that being said, I still think currently I'm just sticking with Poe because it's very, very solid. Green Squadron A-Wing. We know what it does. It's a space unit. It attacks for 3 early on, again, which is why I'm using the Temple of Destruction. Phoenix Squadron A-Wing, the same thing. That's why I'm using Temple of Destruction, because if I do end up going space, this allows me to get the Force to make them stronger, to hopefully help them live a little bit easier, right? But, you know, 2 strong turn 1 space units to keep up the aggro pressure. Sabine's Masterpiece has a ton of great effects. With Timely Intervention, you can do some fun things with it. In this deck, you are pinging something, or you're giving out an experience token. And with Obi-Wan, Sabine's Masterpiece plus Obi-Wan, you're handing out a ton of experience. Just know that the way that you have to do it, as I explained earlier, is that you have to use Sabine's Masterpiece to give an experience token to the things that already have experience tokens, and then use Obi-Wan to give experience tokens to the things that don't have the experience tokens already, right? But still, very, very strong. We only play 9 space units. You know, it's just for right now, right? I do think that in my sideboard, obviously I have bright hopes, right? So I do think that maybe we could go a little bit higher on space, but this is more of a ground centric deck, and I think that that's okay. We'll kind of see how it plays out. Again, things will change. I will go over other things that you could potentially put in this deck, and we'll go over that in a little bit. Next, we have the events. I'm only playing 3 timelies at the moment. Again, I am testing out a ton of units to kind of see where I want to go with the deck and then make the changes from there. But the 3 timely, this allows you to get ambush on a unit. It can help in the late game. You can use it on Poe. You can use it on Wrecker. Very good there. Also, you can play it for Smuggle for 2. And again, use it to get rid of opponents' huge threats that you really need to get rid of, right? And 3 General's Blade. I love this card. It works so well in this deck. There are a ton of Jedi, including our leader. So when this goes on something, not only is it getting a 3/3 buff, but it's also allowing you to play a lot of your cards cheaper. So it's just, I think it's very, very solid. So that's the list right now. Again, you can choose to go with Temple Vader if you want the 3 extra HP, or Temple of Destruction if you want to go ahead and go with the more 3 damaging units early game. And the reason I did choose Temple of Destruction is because a lot of my early game is not like force units, because I'm prioritizing getting the 3 damage in consistently on turn 1 to get the force with Temple of Destruction to allow Obi-Wan to get out those experience tokens as soon as possible. But still, I think the deck is a ton of fun. I'm going to put the deck list down in the description below. And again, things are going to be ever changing in this deck list. So when you see it next, it might be a little bit different. I want to then now go over cards that I think could work in this deck if you do want to go for the more force-centric build. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about cards that you can put into the deck. If you want to go with the more tempo style of deck rather than the full aggro that I was going with, Force Throw, you could definitely add Force Throw. Force Throw is very strong. You're going to have the Force early on if you are going to go with the Force build. This is, again, things that you can add into the Force build of the deck. Force Throw is definitely a card. It's going to go into my sideboard, but Force Throw in the main, people might actually really enjoy that. The Jedi Counselor. Now, for me, I don't like cards that use the Force, not really that use the Force, but for an action, play a unit from your hand that costs 2 less. I think that Jedi Counselor can be, there's potential there, right? But I also think that he is easily defeated on turn 1 if your opponent has the initiative, and then you wasted your turn 1 play. And yes, you did protect your base a little bit, and I'm not getting the Force, but I'm not allowing you to go ahead and get a unit from your hand that and make it cost 2 less, and then also requires you to use the Force to do it. So you're not starting the game with the Force unless you have the green base that allows you to just get the Force. But still, like, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the Jedi Counselor, but I can see why some people might want to try to play it. I'm just not huge into it, to be honest. Grogu is a card that might find its way into the deck if I do go with the more with the build that I want to take out my opponent's units and find my time to strike. And if that's the case, Grogu will find the way into the deck. His ability to come in hidden, very good. So it means your opponent can attack into him, so he will be able to at least live the initial turn that he's played if they don't have removal, right? And to get removal on turn 2 to get rid of Grogu, it has to be Power of the Dark Side, pretty much, and Merciless Contest. But for an axe, you can heal up to 2 damage from a unit. If you do deal that much damage to a unit, that is extremely strong. It stops those space aggro decks, which is why I'm like so tempted to throw it into this deck, just because this deck does not have a ton of space, and I think that Grogu could be the potential missing piece to help you defeat the space aggro decks and stuff like that. Yes, you can go ahead and play Bright Hope, but I'm not putting Bright Hope in my main at any point. This could be a main board card, allowing me to use my force unit to clear out another unit on the other side. If it lives, I go ahead and I use Grogu, I heal the damage off of it, and I fling it into space to hit those low HP space units. I think that Grogu is definitely a high potential card to go into this deck. I do think Jedi Knight is cool. Again, if you are going aggro, you are gonna get the initiative decent amount of time. But the issue with that is with Obi-Wan, you're giving out the experience token, which will kind of forego the initiative, which kind of is scary, which will kind of negate this ability, which is why I didn't include it. But you can include it if you would like. It's another way to ping something on the ground for 2 damage. Mirren is okay. On attack, you may discard a card from your hand if you do deal 2 damage to a unit. I don't want to give up a lot of my resources. Again, it's another option for you to help you take out space units, which is pretty cool. But I don't want to discard cards consistently from my hand to just do that, right? I think that the way that I want to build this deck is that I want to get out a ton of small things and keep up the pressure. And if I'm using this card to discard a card from hand, you're kind of defeating the purpose of the deck. So I'm not a huge fan of this card in this deck specifically. I think that it's better in other decks. Luke Skywalker, I was on the fence about, right? With Luke Skywalker, again, with how consistently we are getting the Force, I think this could be a very potent card. But the other cards provided me with a little bit more consistency, and we are playing a ton of unique units, so this could find its way in here, right? But when you play another unique unit, you may use the Force. Again, the Force is so easy to get in this deck. If you do that, give an experience token and a shield token to this unit, and he's a Force unit, so you can use it with Temple of Vader or Temple of Destruction. But again, being able to get that shield, him becoming a 4/6, if you use Obi-Wan's ability on him first to make him a 4/6, then he's a 5/7 for 4. That's scary. I think that this card is potentially going to find its way into the deck. I'm just trying to decide between Heathcoff and Luke Skywalker, and maybe I go both. I'm not entirely sure, but like, this card has potential to do funny things in this deck. And again, keep it on your radar, keep it in consideration, right? I didn't want to really put Shock T in the list, mainly because I'm not token generating. Like, and yes, I can on attack create a clone trooper token. Very solid, right? Again, with Obi-Wan, this could be a 4/5. But I prioritize other. I think Heathcoff and Luke Skywalker would be put in this deck before Shock T. So sadly, Shock T kind of falls away. But if you want to go ahead and try to go even more wide, again, on attack, creating that clone trooper token, allowing you to use Obi-Wan's ability on the tokens as well. Not something to sneeze at, right? You have a 3/3 clone trooper and you continue to go ahead and get wide. So that's pretty good there. Ayla Secura I already talked about. I think that this has a ton of potential in the deck. If I do want to go with the full Force build, I will replace Poe with this. But I do think that Poe, with that 6 HP and something like that, it's a little bit harder to get rid of. Very solid. Kid Fisto's Aether Sprite is pretty cool. This allows you to defeat any number of upgrades on a unit. This stops the Voltron, right? This is a good card to have. I think it's going to go in as a sideboard card for me. It is a Jedi, so that's pretty cool if you have Jedi synergy across the board. But those decks that do make certain space units get super large, you bring this in, you just nuke all of the upgrades on a single unit, and I think that's pretty key. This is a sideboard card for me, maybe a main board card, but I do think it's a sideboard card potential. It does have Saboteur as well, which is very nice. Luminous Beings is very good as well, because you can put Force units from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck in a random order. And then after that, you may give that many units +4/+4 for the phase. So this, as a potential closeout, I was debating whether or not to use this. The way that I would build the deck, it's just, I don't get the 6 resources very consistently. But obviously, as you play against other decks, it's going to be more and more prevalent that you do go to 6 resources. And I think that this might be a card that I end up using. Yes, it's expensive, but it allows you to get +4/+4. And if you are going wide with Force units, this is a game ender, right? This is just very strong. Love it. I think that it's going to go into the deck the way that I plan on building this deck. We have Killerin Beck. Again, a card that can potentially go into the deck When played, search the top 7 cards of your deck, reveal for a unit, reveal it, play it, and it costs 3 less. And again, with all the cards that we are planning on playing, all the low cost cards we are planning on playing, this is actually just very solid Ewing, because you get your 7/7, but then you also get another unit on the board as well. If you end up playing this, and it doesn't require you to have it be like certain costs, right? So if you play this on the 8 resource turn, the 9 resource turn, you can go ahead and play a 4 cost for 1. If it's the 8 resource turn, a 5 cost for 2, and so on and so forth. So I do think that this is a very good high-end card to put into the deck. So keep that in mind. I kind of went over just mainly force units and stuff like that. There are obviously events and other things. I just don't want this video to be super long, but I'm just saying, if you want to go with the force build, consider replacing some of your rebel units with these units and kind of go from there. Then sprinkle in your upgrades and events and stuff like that as you see fit. But again, I have a ton of fun with this deck. Deck list will be down in the description below. Try it out when you can. I will go ahead and try to get some proxy versions of the deck going, so I can go ahead and showcase the ability of this deck through an actual game. But until then, if you guys are new here and you enjoy the content, make sure that sub button down below. Support is always appreciated. And again, also, if you haven't done so yet, check down the description as well for Team Maclunky's YouTube channel. If you do enjoy high competitive streams of PQs and other events as well, Team Maclunky has a very good setup, a very good casting crew. So it's high quality content. If you want high quality competitive content, make sure you show the love to Maclunky Gaming as well. With that being said, we're going to go out of here. We'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.